It is 22 degrees centigrade here in Abuja, humidity of 44%. So just gradually just moving on to different kind of weather, but nonetheless beautiful weather here in Abuja, the central business district here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm Chamberlain. So,
yes, indeed, a very beautiful morning in the nation's capital. Really dusty if you're someone who has allergies or you find yourself sneezing recently. Wear a mask, because the dust is here. And you're seeing there on your screen the central business district in Abuja. Good morning. This is Kayla Megwa. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
And here in Lagos, well, the weather isn't too different. Look at that right there. Yaba, Lagos, Nigeria. Well, let me just let you know that this morning we have shared the women a piece. Bakwe is here with me in Lagos. Good morning, Bakwe.
Indeed, it's beautiful to be here in Lagos. Well, I can say for one thing, I can experience I'm experiencing a bit of humidity even in the dryness, thanks to the lagoons of Lagos. Okay. So maybe we should work on putting out some water bodies in Abuja, save some water for the dry season. But hey, the haze is there nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Good morning and welcome from Lagos, where we've been before now. I'm Maokpe Ogunye.
And I'm Makinde, just to let you know that this is Yaba in Lagos, and of course that's the bus terminal. And what you saw before now is a T bridge that this area houses the bus terminal, which will also house the red line that is going to be commissioned sometime between this month and next month. There's a rail line, there's the blue line bus, there's a road transportation, you name it. This is Lagos. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Okay, so haven't seen how different things are playing out in the polity, several meetings, several things going on. So today, for instance, the minister of the Ministry of Transportation will be having a meeting. Now, that's part of what's going to be happening this morning, today, in Abuja. Now, the Minister of Transportation will be meeting with heads of agencies because it has to do with this performance bond. So they will have to give themselves some talking. They need to know that all eyes are on them, the ministries, departments, the agencies. So they also need to know that having signed that performance bond is either you shape up or you shape out. So both the handlers of the economic management team should also know that many are looking to see. So whatever policies they put in place, it is a result out there that people will judge them by. So this kind of meeting should go on in all the ministry. They should have that internal look amongst themselves.
And of course, we're also talking about the Senate committee meeting. They're going to be meeting with the CBN governor at some point today, and that is a very crucial conversation. That is one thing that we are looking out for, that Senate committee meeting with the CBN governor. And of course, a lot of issues with the economy, which is the biggest story everywhere, about the standard of living, the inflation in the country. How do we bring it down? How do we make life easier for the Nigerian? So those are some of the conversations and basic stories that will be happening today.
And from here in Lagos, well, during the business segment, we'll be looking at the reaction of manufacturers to the ban on sachet spirit drinks. And forget that a few days ago, NAFDAC had come out, reiterating their earlier ban on spirits sold in sachets, talking about how young people and youths who should not be getting their hands on these items were getting their hands on them. So the NAFDAC DG had to reiterate that this ban was still in place. Now, manufacturers are reacting to that, and that will be coming on our business segment at 10 a.m.
In the meantime, maybe it's time for us to take a look at the papers now.
So let's take you through some of the dailies here. So they highlight different things. Take a look at the Vanguard newspaper, for instance. Education with tears. Hardship. creating more indigent students as students attend classes hungry. Students dropping out will exacerbate insecurity, ascribed to ASU Naptan. Situation pathetic, ascribed to NANS. We're taking steps to make life better. That's from the FG. That's the big lead on the front page of Vanguard.
And from the leadership newspaper, the big lead there, hardship. Tinubu governors, reps attempt solutions. That is the big headline there from the leadership newspaper. More on that story on page 4.
Well, taking a look at the Guardian newspapers, you see right there, subsidy returns ease in parentheses as federal government leverages NNPC to manage market shocks. That's the lead story on the front page of the Guardian. Okay, well, I think you can see something else, actually.
That's the Guardian.
I'm looking at another Guardian. Apologies for that. I think you can see right there how Super Eagles, well, it says right there, road to AFCON finals, how Super Eagles defied odds, doubts to qualify for 10 billion naira CAF prize. I wish that 10 billion naira was coming to all of us. I mean, the manner in which we have been supporting the Super Eagles.
You're the first of all divided by 200
million people. But hey, it's a good thing that our boys, they certainly deserve it against all odds.
Absolutely.
That's the title of that. That's the front page of the Guardian this morning.
And the Nigerian Observer is down to earth, so to speak. Protests spread as cost of living worsens under Tinubu. That story is on the front page and it continues on page 2 of the Nigerian Observer this morning. That's the big story.
Well, have a look at Daily Trust. Imams, bishops to government provide food, security to poor at grassroots. And then you see fresh protest in Kano. Labor issues strike ultimatum. Niger government apologizes over arrest of protesting women. Nigerians' resilience being tested, ascribed to the speaker. And then you see Tinubu orders release of grains. This day, Daily Trust.
Well, those are the papers that we actually have. I mean, we have looked at the Guardian, but there's another headline there from the Guardian. Reps to tighten defamation laws amid Gbajabiamila's 3 billion naira COVID-19 fund allegation. And that is one of the stories we're going to be looking at today on the program, really taking a look at what the Speaker of the House of Representatives said yesterday in that World Press Conference. It has so many headlines inside of it. So we're going to try and see if we can, break them down and actually have conversations about it. But that is also a story from the Guardian newspaper. And that's one of the stories that actually stood out for me. Lagos, Malpe, Ayo, what stood out for you this morning?
Well, truth is, there's still a few more papers that we're yet to quickly run through, if we can still highlight a few of them here. Taking a look at Nigerian Tribune, for instance, the front page there is also talking about the hardship. Federal government orders release of 102,000 metric tons of rice, maize, gari, millet. You see right there, Ekiti government distributes 10,000 bags of maize to livestock farmers. Kano Anti-Corruption Agency threatens warehouses, stores, hoarding food items. This Nigeria has, on its own front page, blamed Buhari's government for current hardship, say northern leaders. Consult Okonjo-Iweala, additional others, Ohaneze urges Tinubu addressing rising food prices, not quick fix. I believe that there are a few more.
Well, the blueprint is saying the same thing as the Nigerian Tribune this morning, as NLC issues FG 14-day ultimatum. Tinubu orders release of 102,000 metric tons of food items. There is also Business Day this morning that is also talking about the Naira and
tax
allied
amnesty,
issues.
I think.
Yes.
You're seeing right there on the front page of Business Day, that can quickly pop up for us. Nigeria plans new tax amnesty scheme for the wealthy. I think it was Mr. Bismarck Rawane who said that, this current inflationary pressures is affecting both the rich, the poor, and the downtrodden. So everybody could do with a little bit of subsidy at this point in time. But I mean, I think all that we can see, and I think that stands out for everybody, is the fact that, the cost of living crisis, and I think we should call it by its name because that's essentially what it is. The cost of living crisis is affecting everybody, is right there on the front pages. You can't miss it of all of the dailies this morning.
And talking about what stands out, the Nigerian Observer stands out for me, and I was afraid that this would happen. Look at the front page of the Nigerian Observer. It says protests spread as cost of living worsens under Tinubu. Well, we can name anyone, about it, but I have been afraid, I am afraid, and I am calling attention of whoever needs to listen to the fact that this needs to be addressed. And one way I believe, Malcolm, that this can be addressed, talk to the people. Just talk to them. Let the people know that I feel you, I know what is going on and all of those things. Not just the president here now, but the governors as well. It's important, it's imperative. Let people know that you know what they are going through. You feel what they are feeling and that something is being done about it. So protests are spreading, and God forbid another, scenario of what happened in 2020 and a number of other things that have happened what happened in 2012 as well. So these things are already happening. They are the realities of people. Let this thing be addressed, and one solid way it can be addressed is for whoever is doing something to come out and say, I feel you, I know, demonstrate, don't just talk about it, demonstrate, so that these things don't worsen.
Couldn't agree more. Chimberling.
Okay.
We still have one more headline that I think we should look at, and that is another topic. Speaking of protests across the country, and of course everything that's been going on, we're seeing this headline from the Daily Independent. NLC TUC issue 14-day strike ultimatum to the federal government, and that is a very worrisome situation that is developing. So we're watching to see there's a 14-day ultimatum, and that is from the Daily Independent. Chamberlain.
Yeah, and all about this rising cost of living, which the dailies have reported. So, but about those protests, which some of the dailies have reported this morning, right from the Daily Trust, even up until the Daily Independent here. So we also reached out to, just to clarify, the State Security Advisor to Kogi State did tell us that, look, there were some misleading reports that were put out previously about protest in Kogi. So he says it was not a protest about the cost of living, that it was actually some market women who had paid a costly visit to market women in Lokoja who paid homage, beg your pardon, to the newly coronated Mayor Gary of Lokoja at his palace, because they were carrying foodstuffs, and so some people thought it was protest about food prices. Well, we hear you, quite all right. But yes, of course, we all know that government say they want to do something, or they are doing something about this rising cost of living, because the figures all telling. So those are some of the issues that we'll highlight here this morning when we return in just a moment. Stay on with us.
House of Representatives, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, arrives at meeting room 301 of the House of Representatives to address a world press conference over critical issues in the polity.
Into this venue,
he reveals that the House is set to take steps over the unfortunate state of insecurity in the country.
While recognizing and commending the patriotic and courageous efforts of our security agencies, we must have the courage to effect changes where necessary. These are among the issues that the forthcoming Legislative Security Summit will address. This summit, which comes up in a matter of weeks, will, among others, allow us to hear directly from the key stakeholders in the sector and come up with legislative measures to modernize our security system and improve its operational efficiency and effectiveness.
Mr. Abbas also laments the current economic hardship being experienced by Nigerians.
We are aware of the economic challenges facing our constituents across Nigeria. Of particular concern to the House is the high inflation rates, particularly the rate of food inflation. As you are all aware, various factors, including insecurity, economic downtowns, and climate change-induced disruptions, have exacerbated this crisis. I wish to commend the rapid and decisive response of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, to the issue of food security. The 2023 supplementary budget provided a 200 billion naira palliative package, mainly for grains, seeds, agricultural inputs, and equipment for farmers. This momentum has been sustained in the 2024 budget, which has significantly improved the budgetary allocations to all critical sectors of the economy.
After the briefing, the Speaker then takes questions from journalists. He assures Nigerians that the Parliament will leave no stone unturned to change the fortunes of the country.
I'm sure my honorable colleagues and every meaning Nigerian will tell you that there is no better time for the Nigerian Parliament to come out and speak the minds of Nigerians, to respond to their anger, to their agony, to their pains. There is no better time. That's why we're here. We are not here to take care of ourselves. We are here to represent our people. And at this time, at this era, with the kind of hardship Nigerians are facing, it becomes obvious and expedient on us to call for this briefing and to tell the world that we are concerned. We feel their pains, we hear their problems, and we will not relent in coming out to solutions that will ameliorate all their sufferings.
The House of Representatives is also pledging to work with the executive arm of government to ensure that Nigerians get the dividends of democracy sooner than later. Daily Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
All right, so that is what we're going to be talking about this morning, the cost of living and all what is being said and done about it, as a matter of fact. So we've got Mr. Femi Falana, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us virtually this morning to shed light on a certain court's decision, which he actually went to court for. So good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program here today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, you did go to court, and so the Federal High Court in Lagos ordered the federal government to fix prices of petroleum product, goods, and some, I think goods as well, for within 7 days. And that got people wondering, okay, how is this going to play out? So could you shed some light on this matter? Give us a background. First, many wonder if this is actually practicable, considering the fact that we've got the PIA for the petroleum sector. We're talking about a deregulated economy. So can they still fix prices? Or what does the court mean when that was handed down?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. In the first place, we filed the case in June last year when the situation in the country was substantially under control. But things have gone haywire. And the judgment of the court could not have come at a more opportune time than now. Now that the masses of our people, majority of our people, can no longer afford the cost of living, they cannot afford to buy food items, medicine, and other essential goods. And so what the court is saying is that there is a law in Nigeria called the Price Control Act. It was that law that we took to court. So we dusted it off, as it were, to have to draw the attention of the government to its basic responsibility to intervene decisively by controlling prices in our country. I didn't make the law. And I'm sure that the court in its wisdom decided to uphold our submissions. And what is the difficulty? When you say the economy is deregulated for who? We are running a peripheral capitalist system. It's not a capitalist system. Hence, the government gives out, the government grants duty waivers running to trillions of
All right, so we seems to have lost that connection, but the point which he's trying to make there is they had to dust that law out and see. But Mr. Fallon, I mean, yeah, but you respond, you continue your response, but okay, go ahead. I think we've got it.
I'm saying the government grants duty waivers running to trillions of naira to business people or the business community to bring in goods to the country. If you gain billions of naira or trillions of naira through duty waivers, the government can simply not allow you, the government should not allow you to fix any price you like. Today, the pump price of petrol, PMS, is fixed by the NNPCL. If that had not been done, by today, the pump price will have gone to about 1,500 naira because it's $1 per liter. Because they said they were internationalizing the pump price of fuel. Now, where can the same government not direct the NNPCL to also control, fix the price of diesel and kerosene? We need the Nigeria Customs Service that fixes duties. The Nigeria Customs Service fixes duties for imports. As far as we are concerned, the government has a duty to direct customs to reduce the skyrocketing prices of, skyrocketing duties imposed on imports. Now, when you consider the fact that this government has refused to allow the electricity companies to increase their tariffs, telecommunication companies to increase call rates, the government is being urged to extend the control to other areas of the economy so that the poor can live a decent life in the country, or to use the phrase credited to the Senate President, Senator Akpabio, that the regime must let the poor breathe. And that is the essence of the case.
So, well, some of the members in the lawmakers that we spoke with actually thought that law should have been, expunged because they thought that it conflicts with the PIA when it comes to the oil and gas sector. Because they thought since the PIA came to fruition, there was no point, and this will be very difficult to implement.
The case goes beyond petroleum products. But what is important, if the National Assembly members are now saying, oh, we made a mistake, we haven't repeated the law, that is an admission. that law has to be enforced. There is also the Federal Consumer Protection Act enacted by them a few years ago to defend that there shall be a commission to ensure that consumers are not exploited in Nigeria. That body also performs similar functions. And the members of the National Assembly will have to realize that under the Constitution, which has not been amended or even repealed, the government has a duty to protect the people, particularly the masses. And that is why it is stated in Section 16 of the Constitution that the national economy shall be controlled, shall be managed in such a way by the government to promote the happiness of our people and ensure, the government shall ensure that the commonwealth, the natural resources of our country, the wealth of our country are not concentrated in the hands of a few. So if you run a government with the support of the National Assembly, giving duty waivers to people, to business people, a selected few to import goods to Nigeria and not allowed to pay duties, or business people who are giving tax holiday, tax reliefs, the government has a duty to say, whereas we have given you duty waivers, whereas we're giving you tax relief, you must now operate in a manner that we can control the goods you have imported into the country. That is what we're saying. And the National Assembly member will have to look at it. And if they want to repeal the law, they must conduct a public hearing so that members of the public can make their contribution.
But do you think this law is enforceable?
But I have just told you that the government fixes the pump price of PMS. We are saying
NNPC says obviously, look, we're a private company now, so that is out of our control. And now,
if it is
yes,
if the NNPC is a limited liability company, which it is,
I think you need to unmute.
It is a federation company. That company belongs to the government of the country. And that is why it is still being run like a parastatal. If it is a private liability company, the MD has no business running to the villa to hold meetings and consultations with the president. Because it is a federation company, it has to protect the interests of the Nigerian people. And that is why the NNPC fixes the pump price of petrol. We are saying you must also do the same for diesel and kerosene, because we do not have access to electricity in our country. The energy sector is in crisis, and that is why most Nigerians run their businesses on generators. And so the government cannot pretend, oh, we are running a free market system, therefore we're not going to get involved. The market has to be controlled by the government, and you have just seen that in their claim.
So does this apply to this law, this ruling? Does it apply to federal government and state governments as well? All right, I was asking, does it apply to federal government and state governments too? If you can just unmute so we can hear you. I'm asking if this ruling applies to just the federal government, or will the state governments be bound by the same judgments? Okay, I'm not sure Mr. Falana can hear us at the moment.
Mr. Falana, can you hear us?
Okay, so we'll try and sort that out in a bit. But yeah, we do get the point. Mr. Falana, can you still hear us now? Okay, but you're muted, so you need to unmute so we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So will the state government be required to do anything, or this applies strictly to the federal government?
No, the state governments, in fact, have a greater responsibility. Whereas under the Constitution, the only body recognized to advise the president on the management of the economy is the Nigerian National Economic Council. That body, which is chaired by the vice president, is constituted by the 36 state governors, the governor of the central bank, and the minister of finance. That body is required from time to time to advise the president on the management of the Nigerian economy, but with profound respect, because that body has abdicated its responsibility, constitutional responsibility. The IMF and the World Bank now advise the governments of Nigeria on how to underdevelop our country and destroy the economy. I'm therefore saying, again, secondly, since fuel subsidy was removed, there's not a single month that the three tiers of government have not gained 500 billion naira. Whereas in April last year, April 2023, the amount shared by the three tiers of government, the federal government, the state government, and local government, was 655 billion naira. Since then, according to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, since fuel subsidy was removed, the three tiers of government have been sharing not less than 1 trillion per month. In fact, in June last year, the amount shared, or the amount to be shared, was 1.9 trillion. In December last year, the amount shared was 1.7 trillion naira. So if the three tiers of government have gained maximally from the removal of fuel subsidy, they owe it a duty, not the federal government alone. The three tiers of government owe it a duty to go back to the people. Yeah.
Mr. Falana, one of the issues that I wanted to discuss with you is about the engagements, because I'm hearing you talk about a lot of these councils. There's a committee that has been set up to take a look at the rising cost of living and, of course, food shortages and everything. What do you make of these engagements? Do you think that they're going to help us get the kind of results that the Nigerian people are, as you have talked about, desiring a better standard of living? Do you think these engagements are going to do that for the people?
No, if you don't struggle, you are not going to win. Unless you guys in the media can help and make information available to our people. What are the benefits of the removal of fuel subsidy? If, as I'm saying, the governments have been sharing over 1 trillion per month, it does not reflect in the living standards of our people. And for me, I think there's been so much attention on the federal government. We just said from the National Assembly, both chambers, what of the houses of assembly of the states? What of the local governments? What are you giving back to the people from the money you are gaining from the removal of fuel subsidy? And at the end of the day, I am convinced, beyond any shadow of doubt, but the way Nigerians are going, the government is going to be forced to review the removal of fuel subsidy. The government is going to be forced to review the dollarization of the economy. And once you can do that, in the interest of our people, and you ward off the undue pressure of the IMF and World Bank, and you discuss, you engage with the people, with labor, with the youths, with women, and other vital segments of the society, then we can begin to talk of a country, a sovereign state that is prepared to address the problems confronting its people. But right now, through the religious implementation of neoliberal programs and policies, there is no way you can combat poverty. We must go back to the drawing table and discard the deleterious solutions of the IMF and World Bank. Just 2 weeks ago, the IMF was telling the British government that, hey, come, you are not in. Come to Africa and say you are spending so much on health, on education, on transport. I think these are the issues. Let the government take control of the economy in the interest of people. Unless the government is prepared to do this, there's no end in sight to the crisis that is already on the street.
Mr. Falana, you know, it is remarkable. I don't think anyone would ever have seen this coming. The fact that this kind of matter, this economic matter, could be something that can be addressed through the courts. You have chosen to go to the courts to get a judgment, you know, which is now forcing the hand of the federal government to fix prices. But some people will say we've been there before in this country where government fixed prices. And what we had was a situation where there was hoarding and there was monopoly. And it had the contrary effect of what government had intended in the first instance. So how do you think, I mean, this is something, if this is something that we've practiced, because the laws which you have dug up now are Nigerian laws, even though some people are saying they're old laws, but they're Nigerian laws. How do you think, going from the experience we had in the past, going from recent experience we've had with fuel subsidy, which government intended at a certain price, but the realities on the ground were not tallying with that, how do you think this enforcement, or this order which you're seeking, is going to work, knowing that government has had no input in terms of how these products have either been produced or brought into the country?
Malcolm, that will no longer be correct. If we're running a capitalist system that emphasizes production, you can say, oh, anybody who produces goods can sell at the rate determined by him or her. But in our own case, because the ruling class, members of the ruling class have granted the country, we are now compelled to import virtually all items, including toothpick, chairs, whatever. The government has a duty to impose duties. The customs has a duty, mobilized by the government, to impose duties that will not make those imports too expensive in town. 2, the government has a duty to ensure that the electricity companies do not charge tariffs, because the government is also subsidizing those discos. Furthermore, the government has a duty to ask NNPCL, you have fixed the price of PMS, please extend it to diesel and kerosene, at least for now, until the economy improves. But we can't just say, oh, and by the way, what monopoly are you talking about? What monopoly? When the borders were closed, when President Buhari closed the borders for over a year, 2 companies were allowed to move in and out of the country. Clearly did not affect them. 2, today, in the last 5 years, a few companies were granted duty waivers to the tune of 16 trillion naira. So how can you tell me that there's no monopoly in our country? There was no monopoly. This is the...
Oh dear, it looks like we're losing you a bit.
The kind of monopoly being operated in Nigeria is totally against the basic tenets of capitalism.
Okay, so whilst, those companies, while we're looking at those companies which you have now, highlighted that have received waivers, but we also know that there are lots of other companies that are going out there, to also bring in products. Some of them even small companies, some of them owned by just one individual or run by one individual, as the case might be. I'm looking at the array of products now which the court order affects, and it affects the prices of bicycles, spare parts, flour, matches, milk, motorcycles, sugar, salts, and petroleum products. Now let's take a look at, the things that people can eat: flour, sugar, salt, and these other products that we know that some of them are produced right here in Nigeria. How do you then, because you've talked about how if it was about production, some of them are produced right here. How is this order going to be enforceable on some of these items which are also included in the court order?
But those ones that are produced there, the same government has sort of opened the borders to allow others to be brought in. And so we have a crisis in the market. Instead of encouraging local production, we are bringing all manners of goods, including the areas you have mentioned. And because of the superiority of some of the products from abroad, the local industries are in trouble. Take, for instance, the previous regime, the Buhari administration, placed a ban on access to forex market in respect of about 43 items. This government has lifted the restriction. So those goods that are produced in Nigeria have to compete with goods that are brought in from Ghana, from Togo, from England, from China, and everywhere. And so we have a problem. And that is why the government, which controls the goods that are coming from abroad, the government has a duty. We don't produce bicycles here. We don't produce vehicles here. The government will have to sit down. Because of the crisis in the economy, and we as the Nigeria Customs Service to reduce the import duties. And that is how to control the prices. That is how to control the price.
Mr. Falano, I cannot fault your argument on, how it is that you're suggesting that government controls the prices, especially of items that are imported into Nigeria, and how it is. But some people will say that this particular idea, can be another ideological, it can become an ideological argument. But I don't want to dwell, I don't want to dwell on that. I want to dwell on the practicality, of what it is that we're asking for, the protection of, producers back home. Now, there's one question. It keeps coming and it's going in my mind right now. I'm trying my best to get a hold of it. But maybe I'll let Ayo come in. When that question comes back, I will take you up on it. Thank you.
Well, but interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Falana, first of all, let me begin by asking you this. You have identified that Nigeria has an open market economic system. And so are you asking for an adjustment? Because the closed market system is one with a prohibitive number of regulations that constrains free market activity. Is it in any way likely to affect Nigeria's open market economic system, this enforcement, this judgment of the court that you have gotten?
Well, Ayo, the point I'm making is that the government is required by the Constitution to run an economy that will not allow the concentration of the wealth of our country in the hands of a few. If you follow the constitutional provision very well, nobody will be given an oil block. If you take the oil resources in my backyard, you can't give oil blocks to individuals who, without contributing a dime, will simply hawk the license and become an instant...
That point is noted, but I don't know if you can just... Is it likely? Because that's what some people will be telling you right now, that this order of the court will adjust, alter the open market economic policy of Nigeria. Don't you think so?
Yes, Ayo. There is no provision for open market system in the Constitution unless they are going to amend it tomorrow. I have just referred you to section 16, which you can Google. You can Google right away. It says, the economy of Nigeria shall be operated in such a manner as to promote the happiness of our people, and the wealth of Nigeria shall not, Ayo, shall not be concentrated in the hands of a few people. That means the government must regulate. The government must regulate the economy in a way that the wealth of our country is not concentrated in the hands of a group. That is the law. I didn't write the law. If the National Assembly members now decide tomorrow to convert Nigeria into a capitalist state, then we're not going to depend on rents and royalties. We should be talking about production. And when we have produced enough food, enough goods for our country, then we can review those laws. But for now, the government has a duty to come in to assist the poor, to be able to buy medicine when they are sick, to be able to buy food items, to be able to send their children to school.
Is that the situation that
went to court?
Is this what we're currently contending with, Mr. Falana? Is that what the problem is today? Because some people will say that the problems that Nigeria is facing today is confronting both the rich and the poor. Both the rich and the poor are feeling the pinch, aren't they?
No. The rich, the extremely rich, are not feeling the pain. The poor are feeling pain. The rich are poor, but I'm talking of the rich who are still giving duty waivers when they import goods to the country. Some of them, the government even goes to the bank to take a loan to help them to fund their companies. So when they set up such companies, you cannot just fold your arms as a government. If I want to set up a company in Lagos, you say, oh, Mr. Falana, come to the free trade zone. You are not going to buy land there. We'll give you land free of charge. Whatever you are not going to pay tax there. Whatever you are bringing into the country, Mr. Falana, you will not pay duties because you are contributing to the economy. The government has a duty to say, hey, Mr. Falana, we have given you all these facilities. You must allow us to intervene in the prices you are fixing. Otherwise, you enjoy monopoly to the detriment of the people. That is what the law is about.
Okay, so that argument again, I cannot fault. But let me quickly take you up on a question which I remembered, and it's the fact that, you know, when this long debate was going on about subsidy removal, everyone knew that, you know, this was going to come with some pain. Everyone knew that this was going to come. Just a moment, sir. Everyone knew that this was going to come with some difficulty. And that's one of the reasons why Labour resisted very stiffly the removal of subsidy. This argument has been going on even before 2012, Mr. Falana. So if now, where we are now in, you know, where we're deep down on our knees, where we had nowhere to go, and it was seen that subsidy had to go to at least give government a leeway to get more resources into its hands. Would you say that we have really given it time? Because it's not even yet a year since subsidy was taken off for us to say that, oh, it's not working. This is not what was intended. We're not yet seeing the benefits of it. Isn't this too short a time for us to reach those kinds of conclusions?
No, Malcolm. The argument of those who were opposed to subsidy removal is that there is no country in the world, none, that does not subsidize one product or the other for the people, including the leading capitalist countries in the world. President Biden has just cancelled the loans taken by students, undergraduates, to the tune of over $1 trillion. So that's a capitalist country. And I've just reminded you that the IMF is asking Britain, invest more in education, invest more in health. In this country, when the government said we wanted to remove fuel subsidy, some of us were opposed and we told the government, no.
All right, well, Mr. Falana, just one last question from here in, just one last question from us here in Lagos, Mr. Falana. Now, you've talked about what government needs to do, and Chamberlain asked you about what the state government needs to do as well. What is the role of the people in these? Just yesterday, we spoke with Mr. Obani, who said that even the people ourselves, we increase the prices by 50%, 100%, sometimes 200% willy-nilly. We had a guest on the morning break this morning who was talking about what you also mentioned, the fact that products that are made in Nigeria are allowed into the country. And it is people that do these things, not just government. So what is the role of the people in this situation, this conversation we're having? Okay. Well, we can't hear Mr. Falana at this time. I guess that the internet is frozen, but as soon as we have him back, we'll definitely...
Indeed, but very interesting submissions that Mr. Falana has made about the current situation of, of the people. No one can debate that things are very difficult. And, the fact that he was even able to dig out these laws, price control
The law is
Act,
20 years old now. In fact, the first of that law was made in 1977. Before it was reviewed in 2004.
Wow, to think that those laws are in existence, it's going to be interesting to see how government responds to this, because one of the reasons why the court granted judgment in this was the fact that there was no representation on the side, there was no counter from the side of government, and so the court said all your prayers are granted as requested.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how government responds to this, how they're able to control price. Do we still have a mechanism by which that can happen? And what the market's reaction, because whether or not we like it, there is a market right now, and what the market reaction is going to be to that. Will people be responsive to the fact that, government is trying to, alleviate the sufferings of the people and go along with it? Or will there be a resistance? Will there be hoarding? These are the kinds of things that we're looking to see.
And talking about hoarding, look at what you have on your screen right now about the rising cost of living, where the federal government has directed that the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security should release 42,000 metric tons.
Yes.
But the papers this morning are talking about 102,000.
Yes, that's because also they spoke to rice millers, independent rice millers, to also release 60,000 metric tons of rice.
Beautiful.
This is supposed to have an effect on the prices. And I think it was the Kano State government that was threatening rice millers that if you don't open your storehouses, we will come there and open it by ourselves. So it'll be interesting to see just what it is that happens in that regard, because some people have now taken it as a business. That when farmers produce, they go and buy in bulk, they hoard or they keep, as the case might be, depending on the terms you want to use.
Which goes back
and then they wait until it's no longer in the market, then they release theirs.
Exactly, which goes back to what you were saying the other time about, the role that the people themselves have to play in all of this matter, because at the end of the day, sometimes it's we as we say in local palace, we're the one doing ourselves. So
there's that part.
There's that part, but then everyone, as has been established, everyone wants to make money one way or the other.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Chamberlain and Kayla, do we have Mr. Falana back now?
No, he's not back yet. I think
we don't.
we lost that connection.
We lost that connection.
But I mean, we hear him. It's just that there are several questions concerning that in terms of the practicability or how they're going to enforce all of that, because what he said about the petroleum sector doesn't necessarily work across board. So how will government go ahead and implement that?
I think that is the most crucial part of this, is the implementation of what... I actually want you to hear him more today. I want you to be able to get his thinking when he dug up this law and decided that this is something he wants to pursue and was able to get that court order. Just his thinking behind it and if it's actually enforceable. That's something I want you to be able to hear from him. It's a pity that we've lost that connection to him, because I really wanted to hear how because I spoke to a few business people have been speaking up about this, saying, wait, hold on a second. I spent so and so amount to buy this, and then you want to close my business down. How am I going to?
Did you just talk about closing the business?
Well, no, they was talking about the fact that if you fix prices on something that I had to use my money to buy, you know, and I imported it in, and then you fix a price, how do you want me to make my money back? I'm a businessman. You know, is the fixing of the price is going to take into cognizance the fact that I had to deal with the dollar, I had to deal with the naira, I had to deal with these, you know, economic situations? How is that going to help my business?
You know, there are different ways to do that, because if we had, I'm going to check if that's still there, the price control board, if that exists, there's usually a band, a limit within which you can, so people don't just go profiteer. We see that in several other areas. They give you that space such that they don't kill or discourage investors or investments. They all factor that in. So how they go about this, because I don't know if enforceability will be tenable before the courts. The law is the law. If they ruled on it, I don't know. So maybe you can ask Mr. Falana. He's back now, so you can just take that on.
Mr. Falana, can you hear us, sir?
Yes, I'm back now.
Okay, we're seeing someone else. They're still trying to set him up.
You can see me now. You can see me now.
Okay, now we just talked a bit about the enforceability of this, you know, this order that you've gotten. How do you think that it's going to be enforced in a country where we have all of these things that have happened over the years?
Well, you know, we only talk about impracticabilities when it comes to the interests of the poor. I am saying what is important today is that virtually all goods today, majority of goods in the country consumed today are imported from abroad. So at the border, at the port, the government can do some control by reducing import duties. Everybody is complaining. To bring in a car, you pay so much. To bring in Bonvita, you pay so much. Now, let us sit down and pressurize the government to say, comply with the order of the court. Please don't help the government. Let the Attorney General of the Federation go to court. My Lord, we can comply with this order in these areas. In these areas, we're having difficulties. But don't say that a government that is controlling the prices of the core rates, electricity tariffs, the pump price of PMS cannot control the prices of kerosene, diesel, and others. So don't let's complicate the problem of the government by saying, oh, this is not feasible. The Minister of Information had just done that our country has food in abundance. I'm not challenging that claim. How can we ensure that the masses have access to the food items in town? And that is the duty of the government. It's not difficult. Right. If the government has the political will, if the government is willing, it is not difficult. The last one, Chamberlain, before I went off, Marco had asked a question about the difficulty, the pains we are going to go through. Again, this is the language of the government. What pains I have not disclosed to you. And it's your own duty now to ask the government that they have said here that since fuel subsidy was removed on May 29 last year, there is no month that the governments, the federal, state, and local government have not made 500 billion naira, not shared additional 500 billion naira.
All right, Mr. Falana.
What percentage of that is going to service the people? That is the question.
All right, we do hear you and appreciate your perspectives on the matter, and thank you very much indeed for your time here today and shedding light on the background behind that court decision. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
A pleasure.
All right, so it will be time for business news now with Ini John Mekwa.
Oh, thank you so much, Chamberlain. I tell you, this issue of fixing prices for food in the midst of this high cost of living in Nigeria, seems is a very long time away from getting to an end, because yesterday I had a conversation, of course, the same conversation with Mr. Ruwani, and he is not so much in agreement with fixing prices, because I think Kayla did allude to something like that. This is what is happening in electricity, for instance. The discos are saying because prices are fixed, then they are not at liberty to put in all they could have for operations. You know, putting large investments and knowing that you don't have the liberty to choose the price that will cover up your investment. So what does that, that could do is that investors could hold back their investment, or they could create a window, you know, an illegal window. That's the black market. That's where we have for the FX black market, so that through that window they could trade as they want. And we know that the CBN is now trying to open up that space between the black, and I said the white market, and the official market, you know. So this is an ongoing conversation, and very interesting to have a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Femi Falana, delve into it. Of course, he was even the one who took the matter to court. But anyway, let's delve into Business Morning on Sunrise. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start off as usual in the global space with prices that were a little changed on Friday, staying on track for weekly gains, with tensions persisting in the Middle East after Israel rejected a ceasefire offer from Hamas. Looking at the numbers right there, we see, well, we actually did hit $80 for Brent, and this is first time in about a week we've hit $80, but it's going down again, down 0.16% at $81.50 a barrel. WTI also, you know, they go the same direction most of the time, substitutes, but this has no hit 80 yet. It's always cheaper. This is sweet, it's easier to refine, and this is $76.18 for a barrel. And U.S. officials made their most pointed criticism so far of Israel's civilian casualties in Gaza as it turned the focus of its offensive to Rafah. Also, Hamas delegation arrived in Cairo. They did that yesterday for ceasefire talks. We hope to get good results from there. Now, non-OPEC output from Norway and Guyana is increasing, while Russia is exporting more crude in February than it's planned, following a combination of drone attacks and technical outages at its refineries that could undermine its pledge to curb sales under an OPEC Plus pact. A whole lot of things hitting the prices of crude from different fronts. Still talking from the oil sector now, but coming back to Nigeria, the NNPC Limited and the Central Bank of Nigeria have come to terms to define clear boundaries regarding the management of revenue generated by the oil corporation, following the meeting that was held yesterday between the CBN and the NNPCL. The Apex Bank is to hold a significant portion of NNPCL revenue from oil sales, and this is coming after the directive by the President Bola Tinubu, for the NNPCL to transfer revenue from crude oil sales to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Mr. Mele Kyari and Dr. Olaimi Cardoso both shared optimism about the agreement.
We understand very clearly that this review of our decision to move a significant portion of our revenues to the Central Bank of Nigeria is very timely. We made that decision to align with the directives of our board of directors to maintain safe obligor limits with commercial banks. And for us to do this, we do need an additional support, particularly from the Central Bank, to achieve this. We're a very huge company. Our transaction and liquidity levels are very high, and perhaps we are the largest business in this country. And we're also happy that the CBN has created very, very robust digital platform for our transactions, and also created a department that will deal with NNPC issues, and it will create no hindrance to our operation. We will continue to collaborate with the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure that further improvements are received, to ensure that this relationship serves the best interests of our company and, of course, ultimately our country.
We have come to this particular stage where the NNPC has made the decision to move its respectable part of its business to the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I also want to say that we have restructured and strengthened our internal processes such that we will be very capable of taking on this enormous responsibility that will be placed in the central bank.
All right, so we look forward to perhaps more transparency, in the reporting of revenue from our crude. That is the essence of that. So we look forward to that, with the handshake between those two big guys at the top. Now let's go to the grain space. Now, Chicago soybeans slid on Friday with prices under pressure from expectations of higher world supplies, even as forecasters reduced their production estimate for top exporter Brazil. Corn eased, with the market poised for a second weekly loss, while wheat firmed, although prices were set to end the week in a negative territory. The most active soybean contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade traded down 0.1% at $11.92 for a bushel. The market, which dropped this week to its lowest level since December 2020, has climbed 0.3% so far this week. Corn was also down 0.4% at $4.31 for 3/4 of a bushel. Wheat was on the flip side, 0.3% higher, $5.90 for a bushel. For the week, corn is down 2.5%, while wheat has lost 1.7%. The soybean market is facing headwinds amid abundant world supplies and slowing demand from top importer China, offsetting the impact of lower output, which is expected from Brazil. Remember, Brazil is the world's #1 exporter. And then we come back home in Nigeria. Now, we thank God the President Bola Tinubu, has been talking on the recent protests and high cost of living, which has led to those protests. Now, the President is giving some orders, and we hope to see those implemented. As part of the solutions, he's directed the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to immediately release 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, and other commodities in strategic reserve to ensure that food becomes more readily available for Nigerians. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, stated this at the State House after a meeting of the Presidential Committee on Emergency Food Intervention. He said that Rice Millers Association of Nigeria is also committed to release about 60,000 metric tons of rice and make it available in the markets.
The first one is that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security has been directed to release about 42,000 metric tons of maize, millet, and other commodities, gari and other commodities that's in their strategic reserve, so that these items will be made available to Nigerians, 42,000 metric tons immediately. The second one is that we have held meetings with the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, those who are responsible for producing this rice, and we have asked them to open up their stores. They've told us that they can guarantee about 60,000 metric tons of rice. They will make that available to Nigerians to bring it out to the market so that food will be made available. Now, the whole idea of this is to crash the cost of these food items. And these are measures that will happen immediately if it becomes absolutely necessary as an interim measure. On the short run, to also import some of these commodities immediately so that these commodities can be made available to Nigerians immediately within the next couple of weeks. Now, all these are emergency measures. There is, of course, a directive to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to invest massively in conjunction with Nigerian farmers and other producers so that we can have better season coming shortly.
I think the minister used the word immediately about 3 times there. But, I mean, in spite of that, we do know that from when these directives are given to when it really is implemented and gets to the people who really need them, there's always a time lag. So if that is accelerated, that would be a good one. And the other side is, obviously, these are short-term measures. The longer measure would be for us to boost our supply of food. And that brings us to the conversation of insecurity, a large one for the government, I must say, at this time, with the rate of kidnappings going on and, attacks, especially in rural areas where the farms and the farmers are. So I guess the government has its job cut out for it. Now, a couple of days ago, we had on Sunrise Daily, the DG of NAFDAC, and she did tell us about the banning of spirit drinks in sachet. They've been given some time to effect this. Of course, you expect reactions. And one of those who have reacted is the manufacturers. They are talking about investments and jobs that could be affected. But how do you balance this with health? Because you only have to stay alive, especially because they said it's, running down to the youth. The youths are getting these sachets easily because it's more affordable than the bottles and all of that. So how do you balance the health dangers and the jobs that could be affected in all of this? Well, we have the managing director of MAN, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadiri, joining us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Kadiri, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Director General, not Managing Director.
Director General, I thought that's what I said. I beg your pardon, it's Director General, DG. All right, Mr. Kadiri. So your association has been talking about the possible loss of jobs and investments could be discouraged and all of that. But, I mean, a lot of people are also weighing this side by side with the health hazard that comes with these sachets. I mean, it's not like the companies should not produce, but it's the sachet that NAFDAC is talking about.
Okay, so I think first, I'd like to thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to join you to exchange views. And all that we are doing is to build Nigeria in such a way that we have a healthy balance between consideration for business and consideration for the citizenry. So I think what NAFDAC is talking about is something that has to do with access to alcoholic beverage by underage citizens. That is those that are below the age of 18. So what they're actually talking about is not the environmental impact of the sachet or the plastics and so on that they are talking about. What they are saying is an issue of access. So what NAFDAC is trying to achieve is a situation where young people do not have access to alcohol, which they feel if it comes in smaller quantities, in smaller packages, they are likely to have access to it. And that's the contention here. And what we are saying is that, yes, we have concerns for young people. I mean, MAN is a responsible business membership organization. We prioritize health above profit. We prioritize the well-being of Nigerians above profit. And I think the position we have taken has not distracted from this conviction and this principle. So we are on the same page with NAFDAC in terms of ensuring that underage people are protected. The only disagreement we have is the approach which NAFDAC has taken is patently unhelpful. It doesn't help the citizenry, neither does it help business. We are saying that it is better for us to have a fact-based, scientific basis for taking action that will affect the well-being of the overall citizen. Not only the people, not only business, but what will promote Nigeria. And that is the conversation we are having here.
So have you looked at it as MAN, to see if you think this decision by NAFDAC is not being taken based on empirical evidence? Have you done that? Do you have data or anything to push to have an opposing view?
Yes, certainly, because we have been part of the process since the last 5 years when the agreement was signed. There was an interministerial committee that was set up. Man is by his members, by DBAN, they are there. We have Federal Competition and Consumer Protection. We have NAFDAC. We also have the Ministry of Health. We have been engaged in a conversation that has mapped out plans which we have religiously implemented and spent more than ₦1 billion to be able to do education, to be able to put in regulations that will restrict access by underage people. We also have cooperated with them, and we are making progressive inroads into limiting this access. And we have evidence to show that we are achieving success. As a matter of fact, the committee itself commissioned a survey, a research into what milestones have been achieved. And what it showed is that a ban will be counterproductive, and that restriction of access, improving on it, enforcing strict regulations, and setting tasking activities for all those that are involved in order to be able to achieve 100% restriction was online to be implemented. So we never imagined that with all this progress that is being made, a ban will now be imposed. So to answer your question directly, we think that the ban is not helpful because it's going to actually open the floodgate for illicits to enter into the market. There are sales of Paraga, which is the unwholesome alternative to this alcohol in PET bottles, in PET. So it is not helpful. It is actually being penny wise, pound foolish, if I may use the word, because it won't lead to the achievement of your objective. The only thing is that you are effectively closing the shop of those who make wholesome products, those who you can regulate, those whose factory you know and you can have a conversation with them, vis-a-vis those that you cannot hold, you do not know where they operate, you do not know the composition, and you are also opening the gate for influx of those foreign ones that you have no control over their standards. So what we are saying is that if it is already in the market, you needed to be able to regulate and control it rather than ban. This is not to talk of the social implication of that. Everywhere in the country now is difficult. Mr. President is battling with how to improve on the situation of the citizenry. We do not need people out of job. There are 500,000 people that we are talking about here. And what we are saying is that rather than listen to or rather than accept the narrative that is being given, the fact is that the health of the people are not being jeopardized. There's no scientific basis for it on what is being alleged. And NAFDAC has not shown anything other than the general impression that if children take alcohol, they are going to suffer illnesses. Of course, even adults. If you take alcohol in excess, it will have repercussions. But you are not showing any evidence that they are having access to it, and that's what is responsible. If I may just tell you, Tramadol is far more dangerous. The PET bottles we are talking about, the space it will occupy in your pocket, which is what they are giving, you have more than 20 tablets of Tramadol. How do you restrict that? So what we are saying is that, is it wise? Is that the best thing to do? Are there no alternatives? Can't we have a conversation that allows you to progressively achieve what you want to achieve rather than putting people out of job? 2 days ago, the labor union and the NLC and TUC invaded my head office demanding that they want their jobs back, that the factories have been closed. And they didn't think that it was justified. I had to even appeal to them that they do not match on NAFDAC. And we'll be having this conversation trying to ensure that NAFDAC achieves its objective and we also achieve our objective, so all in the interest of industrialization in Nigeria and the well-being of the people.
So how do you hope to approach this now? What do you do next? I know you're having a meeting today. We intend to be there, obviously. What do you hope to do? And it sounds like manufacturers and NAFDAC have not been talking. Perhaps that's where the problem stems from.
Yes, we've been engaging. But I think NAFDAC has taken the end of the matter from the beginning. So they have determined that they are going to impose the ban. I mean, because it was said that in 5 years, we are going to have a ban. So 5 years is here, we should have the ban. But they have discounted all the progress that has been made in the last 5 years. So our conversation has been, yes, we all, and we both agree on the end objective is to restrict access. But it is the journey to that restriction that is the issue. They believe that ban is it, without taking into cognizance the negative impact it's going to have on the people they want to protect, and of course on the businesses that are engaged in that process.
So, Mr. Kadi, do you have...
We are communicating.
Do you have, like, you know, a better, well-researched strategy to restrict, especially the youth, you know, from this, from easily accessing these spirits?
Of course, we do. And we have been doing it with NAFDAC. I mean, that is the beauty of this case. We are on the same page with the measures that have been taken. As a matter of fact, most of it was determined by NAFDAC itself. The Ministry of Health, under the last Honorable Minister, did set up a committee that involved even the local governments that are responsible for issuing the off and on license. We had a scientific approach to this, and we were all on the same page, even with NAFDAC. And we were making progressive steps to achieve it. This is known to everyone, and we have expended more than 1 billion naira in terms of campaign, in on-site visits, in terms of deliberate restrictions, in terms of those who we certify as our distributors, including the education that we have taken to schools and so on and so forth. And they didn't even discount the fact that if you have things sold in smaller quantities, it then discourages people from taking it in larger quantities. All those things we have been doing together. And under this interministerial committee, we did commission a study that indicated that ban is not it. It could be counterproductive. Who is watching the massive smuggling of those items? Do you know the content? Is it not better for you to cooperate with local producers so that we'll be able to give you surveillance, we'll be able to give you market research, which you obviously don't have the capacity to undertake? Is it not better you cooperate with us so that jointly we'll be able to achieve your objective and also save businesses? These are tough times for Nigerians, and I believe that every regulatory agency of government should be alive to this situation we have and make the best of it. I mean, rather than demonize manufacturing industries that are doing legitimate business, and they are just bringing in models that would be able to improve the business environment. I believe the conversation should be more conciliatory, and we shouldn't take extreme measures, especially those ones that are likely to backfire.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Shegun Kadri, the Director General of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And wish you the very best at your event later on today, where I know you will be delving more into this. We do hope you have more handshake, you know, with NAFDAC and other stakeholders.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now let's head to the markets now and see how that's looking. Well, I guess it's no longer news that the norm has happened at the NGX. We see that the all-share index has been going down. I think at a point yesterday, intraday, it was just about 100, but thank God at the close of trade, it came up a bit, and it's at 101,227, down at the close of trade yesterday at down 0.86%. Equities cap is still at 55. Okay, we have the numbers right there. The equities cap at 55.39 trillion naira. Activity was in green, maybe just a little bit of boost, but you know, the value is the most important thing. Gainers yesterday were Mayor Paint and Tantalizers. Some of us don't remember Tantalizers, still there. Red Starex, and then losers were Nascon, Sterling, and Unity Bank. But I mean, of major interests to us this morning is the issue of the bonds. We know that Benin Republic, they got into the Eurobond space and the performed. And then, of course, we made a whole lot of noise about it. But I got a message from a government official yesterday saying that Nigeria's Eurobond was like the best performing last year. So, of course, I had to reach out to the market guys who have the numbers. And they said, yeah, well, we did well, but not enough for us to celebrate. And not enough to hit the 25%, which was claimed. Actually, you have bonds like from Ghana not doing so well. We remember last year that Ghana got a lot of hits. They got their ratings reduced, and so, of course, their bonds were now reduced to junk. So that means they weren't doing so well. But Nigeria's bond was doing so well, but it's not something to beat our shoulders on. So, it would be nice to have an overview of Nigeria's bond performance for 2023, even as we head out to 2024, and I know yesterday we talked about borrowings in the treasury space. And we saw, do you know that by the close of trade yesterday, the treasury yields, which was at 19% at the opening, beginning of the day, had dropped to 16%. So investors, wherever you go to, we're waiting for you. I guess that's it. So while the NGX is going down at this time, profit-taking, people are selling off their stocks to get bolder in the fixed income space. The yields there are now reducing, so you might have to come back to the NGX, just maybe depending on your risk appetite. Yeah, all right. So I think we have Ladibelo now. He has some numbers. Should be able to crunch them together and tell us if really we did so well with our Eurobond in 2023. Hi, Ladibelo. Good morning from Access Bank, fixed income dealer.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so a government official reached out to me yesterday to say, oh, our Eurobond did so well. The yield hit 25% in 2023. I'll believe you more. You have the numbers. How did we do last year?
So in terms of the yields, yes, we did hit all-time highs. But what we should be looking at going into this year is the ability to sustain our debt in the foreseeable future. As we all know, we have sub-Saharan African countries who have issued Eurobonds in recent times, namely Benin Republic, as well as Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast floated their Eurobond across 2 maturities, and they were able to clear the longest tenor at around 8.25%, getting an overwhelming subscription at around 8 billion. But they were only comfortable selling 2.6 billion across the 2 maturities. When you look at Benin as well, these are both of them Francophone nations. So their Eurobonds are usually denominated in euros. This time around, they're denominated in USD. That's why they were partly able to garner more interest from some offshore parties. Benin has been fairly resilient in terms of the pace of its borrowing, and it's also a strong name within the SSA space, though a slightly lower credit rating when you compare it to Ivory Coast. But going into this year, we expect Nigeria to also float Eurobond issuances to roll over its existing obligations, and we are very confident that we'll be able to clear these rates at significantly low single-digit levels.
But now that we see domestic investors in Nigeria very thirsty, do you see the government going to Europe? That's more expensive. It just hikes our rates, our debts.
No, like I said before, I think we're able to raise these Eurobond issuances at single digits levels. I'm sure you're aware of the NTB auction that was printed on Wednesday, which closed around 19%, which, like you rightfully said, has an effective yield of very close to 25%. So in terms of the debt burden, it's actually a bit cheaper now looking at the curve to float some of these debts in USD. And obviously, it's always good to balance your portfolio as we have USD receivables as a nation that's abundant with energy resources.
All right, Ladibelo, fixed income dealer with Access Bank. Thank you so much for your views this morning. So that's all from us here. I forgot to say, it's so good to have Maokwe in Lagos. I wish we were able to keep her for a little bit, Maokwe, so you breathe our air and enjoy what we enjoy. But back to the Sunrise team.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll be turning our attention to Kano pretty soon. But just to also let you know that the Senate Committee, the Joint Senate Committee on Finance, Banking, Insurance, and Financial Institutions began the interactive session with the economic management team that includes the officials of the Central Bank of Nigeria, led by the CBN governor, as you've seen there. So that meeting is going on with that Senate Committee on Finance, Banking, Insurance, and Financial Institutions. So we'll get you more details of this meeting as we get them.
And of course, a lot of engagements, beg your pardon, a lot of engagements going on right now on the rising cost of food, inflation, and all of that. So a lot happening right now
so
in
we're going to go on
in that meeting.
Yeah, so Dr. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafi joins us from our studios in Kano. He is a former chairman committee on prosecution of bandits-related offenses. He joins us there. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. So, yes.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Thank you. So, some information came through from Kano as well about some persons not exactly being happy, just as we've seen in different parts of the country, about what needs to be done concerning this rising cost of living. Security also part of the question. You have played a role while you were in Zamfara to ensure that things go well. So let's start with you giving us a broad perspective, because the federal government have responded. They have ordered the federal government now, the president has directed release of grains from the strategic reserves and taking several other measures. So give us your broad perspective of how you see this response fitting in to what the people are asking.
The economic hardship across the country is itching all segments of our people, both in the rural area and also in the cities. Going by the what is happening, there is a protest in Kogi State, in Niger State, in some part of Abuja. Yesterday in Kano, people are protesting higher cost of living and the economic hardship. So with what we have at hand, there is need for good economic policies. There is need for Mr. President to step in as a matter of urgency to subsidize the economic hardship. So yesterday, Mr. President have approved the release of 42,000 metric tons of assorted commodities, rice, maize, millet, and gari. And also the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria has promised to release 60,000 metric tons of rice to the Nigerian public from their various warehouses or stores. Looking at the security situation also in the country, one of the menace or the root cause of the economic hardship, hunger and starvation, disease, is the escalation of armed banditry, kidnapping for ransom, robbery, displacement of these rural farmers who abandon their farms to farm, forest border, proliferation of small and lighter arms, lack of good economic policies, lack of good monetary and fiscal policies, because the essence of National Economic Council is to advise Mr. President on economic issues.
So, Mr. Shikafi,
domestically and
just
internationally.
A minute. Let me just jump in and ask you.
So that is need.
Just a minute, if you can hear me. From what you've seen of the strategies being implemented. Can you hear me, Dr. Shinkafi?
Yeah, the strategy which the government implemented is an interim by ordering the release of grains.
No.
From
I'm talking about security now. Let me talking about security. From the ministers of defense, the approach that they are coming through with, having been in states where there was security challenge in time past before they assumed office now, do you see that worth of experience coming to bear with the policies and strategies that they are adopting?
Well, we have seen just last week the Minister of Defense have launched a jet fighter, and this terrain where these terrorists and armed bandits hide out in their various camp is a very difficult terrain. So the security personnel need to be fully equipped with modern technology that will make them to fight this crime and criminality in their various hideout. With what is happening in Nigeria is epidemic armed banditry and escalation of armed banditry across these geopolitical zones. In the West, in the South, in the North, in all segments of the society. So the approach, the military or the personnel, security personnel, need to be fully equipped, fully motivated for them to tackle this issue of insecurity.
Mr. Shinkafi, I want to talk to you. Mr. Shinkafi, can you hear us?
I'm hearing you very well.
All right. So I want you to take you up on something that we heard the Speaker of the House of Representatives talk about yesterday when it comes to security. The justification of the amount of money that is spent on security in the country. The question in the minds of many Nigerians is a lot of money is put into security, but it doesn't feel like it's translating into a more secure country. What do you think should be done right now? How can we justify the amount of money that is being spent on security if Nigerians are still feeling this way?
It is very unfortunate. For the first 12 years in the national budget, national security and defense took a lion's share in the national budget. Yet, there's something to write home about. There should be a forensic audit on this money appropriated to this security and defense in the annual budget. That is what we call in the financial account. That is performance audit. That should be a performance audit, compliance audit, and also a forensic auditing to make sure that these funds which were allocated in the national budget, which is a taxpayer's money, should be judiciously utilized in the fight against crime and criminality.
I mean, just so we can also, there's a story that we're actually even seeing right now. Of course, you talked earlier about the protests going on. You said there was protests in Kano. We're actually seeing what people are describing as a spiritual protest going on right now in Yobe State. Are there fears, that these protests could, get a little bit more, unsafe? Is that something that, people are asking, is this something that we should be a little bit more worried about? If there's hunger and insecurity and then we add these protests to it, are we, in danger of creating a volatile situation?
You see, the issue of this protest has a serious negative effect on the part of the government, because this thing can turn to be violence, and this thing can cause a lot of hitches in running of government. Because if there's no proper management of the protest, then God forbid, it may turn to bloody, because some criminal element or some politicians can hijack the protest and turn it to be a chaos. And at the end of the day, we have an anarchy in the country. So the government and the security agencies there should be proactive measures and to curtail this issue of protest. I'm not saying that they don't have right to protest. Constitutionally, Nigeria has the right of freedom of assembly and association. But the government has to be very careful to study the situation because the economic hardship, the purchasing power of the Nigerian currency is seriously, is crazy low. So if you look at the present economic hardship, poverty, unemployment, low bonfire harvest, because of these activities of criminals and bandits that externally and internally displace these peasant farmers from their farmland in the community. Like where I come from in Zamfara State, for you to go to farm, to cultivate your farm during the rainy season or dry season, this armed bandit will enforce levies and taxes in millions of naira. And when also you plant your crops, and it is time for harvest for you to harvest, they will also impose another levies to the farmers. So that was even one of the contributing factors that bring the food insecurity in the country. And that need for the government to step in and fight these criminals. So the government should...
Yeah. So while you were in Zamfara and you headed up committee to prosecute bandits and other related offenses, you know, you kept on saying that there were politicians that were involved at the time. Now, we do have one of the ministers of defense who was well-versed in this matter at the time. So from the kind of cases you've seen us report in this country about this kinds of kidnapping, is there any indication whatsoever that is a similar narrative that politicians may be involved, or these are just criminal elements? How do you suggest we approach this?
Well, you see, politicians, there is good, bad, and ugly politicians. So for some politicians to climb into the mantle of the power, there's nothing they cannot do to cripple the present government or any government of the day. So what I'm saying, what is happening in Zamfara, we have a minister of state who happens to be a former governor, who happens to be a former chairman of security and intelligence in the House of Representatives. He has known the root cause of insecurity of this armed banditry. When we did a committee for finding lasting solution to armed banditry and related offenses in Zamfara State, headed by Inspector General of Police, we have given recommendation to the government how to remedy the situation, both the short term and long term and medium term. That is the issue of peace dialogue with the bandit, granting amnesty to the bandit, then the bandits to surrender their arms, and a lot of remedies were granted to the government. Some of the recommendations governor have implemented, that is by all the lands allocated for the past 20 years was revoked. All the farmlands, all the grazing reserve, forest reserve, and other lands illegally allocated. So there is many ways to fight this thing if the personnel are fully motivated, fully equipped. As I'm talking to you now, in the first state, there is no functional, put it on record, functional APC personnel carrier vehicle. And this terrain is a very difficult terrain. You cannot go there and fight there with your beard putted or with helos vehicles or with motorcycles. And you need a jet fighter and the ground troop to fight these criminals in the hideout.
Well, while it is that, Mr. Shinkafi, while it is that we're waiting for, I imagine that the governor of the state will also be looking to invest a lot in equipment. We know that only recently he launched like a vigilante force to try and combat this particular situation, a civilian arm kind of thing. We're still running away from state police, from the entire country allowing and permitting state police within the Constitution. For how much longer do you think we can run away from this, given the fact that a lot of state governments now think that this is the way to go? And maybe they're not wrong, because if you look at what happened in Borno State with insurgency, when they actually made progress was when the civilian JTF was involved. So for how much longer do you think that the states can run away, or even the National Assembly can run away from legislating on state policing?
Well, you see the issue of this vigilante group or security outfit by state government, I foresee danger on it. And also, the creation of this security outfit has clearly demonstrated that there is failure of the security apparatus at the center. It shows the weakness of the federal government to fight this crime and criminality, because the responsibility of fighting crime and criminality lies with the federal government. And Mr. President at the center is the commander-in-chief armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All these armed forces are directly under the office of Mr. President. So for state government to engage in recruiting, commissioning, equipping this private militia or vigilante group, or for all the legislation for establishment of those security outfits, these governors can use these militias or security outfit during electionary campaign or during an election, which may also bring a violence or a chaos in a country, Nigeria. So for governors to engage on this security, private security outfit, I think it is better that it should be a constitutional amendment to give room for state police. And equally, we have not the role played by the civilian JTF in the fight against Boko Haram terrorists in the southeast or in Maiduguri or in Borno State. Yet, in other part of the state, other part of Nigeria, there is Amotoku, there is Eastern State Security Network, there is Askara, Zamfara, even in Katsina State. But government has to be very careful. The federal government has to be very careful. And it's a clear demonstration and a slap to the security personnel in Nigeria upon all the money appropriated in the national budget. It shows that the Mr. President has a matter of urgency to declare a state of emergency on security and also a total overhaul of the security apparatus in the country.
Mr. Shinkafa, would you really say that it is a slap or, a misunderstanding or a misconception on the part of all of us in the very first instance that we thought that security could be fought or insecurity can be fought in a helicopter manner, when we know that security matters are always local and that there is no way you can fight insecurity without the involvement of the local people? So in the very first instance, weren't we building castles in the air when we weren't allowing state police or state policing be a part of our constitution in the fears that, it could be utilized, it could be misused, etc.? Isn't that what we are now resorting to with all of these local vigilantes?
As I have said to you, the local vigilante is the creation of the Act of State House Assembly. But for the governors to engage on creation or establishment of the local vigilante group in the state, it may have some negative effect in the society. Because some of the governors who want to remain in power by hook or by crook can use this militia to fight the political opponent in the state. And there should be a clear terms and condition attached from the office of the National Security Advisor, office of Director General of DSS, Inspector General of Police, and even from the Chief of Defense Staff to spell out how they are going to operate, the modus of operation. If not, then they will step out of their boundary and start causing havoc in the society. The local vigilante, I'm not saying I'm against it, should be used for security and intelligence gathering in their various communities. Some of these even local vigilante are aiding and abetting armed banditry, kidnapping, bloodletting and killings in their various communities. In the present where I come from, in our report, there is one single person, one single vigilante who killed more than 70 Planese headsmen in the first state, in Marado local government. And he's there roaming about, and he was arrested by police and later granted on bail, and he's there as a free man. So sometimes you just go and attack without any reason. You cannot say any Fulani man by extraction is a bandit or is an armed robber. You cannot say anybody you see on the road that he's a criminal unless and otherwise it was proved beyond reasonable doubt. So if the situation has gone to this level, it is better the National Assembly should call for constitutional amendment to insert the state police, because state police are not directly under even the state governor. They are still under the Office of Inspector General of Police during Shehu Shagari regime.
Well, Mr. Shinkafi, the reference that, let me follow up on Malpe's question to you about the fact that all insecurity is, first of all, local. One of the ways that the Constitution, the laws of the land and our political or democratic structure has positioned it is to empower the local government system to be able to do some of these things themselves. I'd like you to speak to that from your experience as a former chairman of the Committee on Prosecution of Bandits, knowing that these bandits, so to speak, are in various localities. They are in each local government. They are known by the people in their communities one way or the other. But there is nothing they can do now, some will say, because the local government administrations are not independent enough by themselves to be able to take action, organize their own security meetings, convoke a meeting with the CDAs, with the monarchs, that's the traditional rulers, and the council of the local government authorities. Is that something that is significant in line with what you said about state police?
You see, the local government council chairmen are financially handicapped. The joint account, which is enacted or in the Nigerian constitution, has made the state governors to deny the local government councils their funds. So if the local governments are financially independent, then I think it will help in this fight against insecurity in their various localities. You see, in a month, a local government chairman in my own state, where I come from, cannot have an impress of 5 million naira as an operational cost in the whole local government with a population of more than 300 population density. So the local government cannot support the security personnel in his local government area. Some of the security personnel, they will tell you, say there's an armed banditry attack, let's say in Kuria or in Kwari in Shinkapi local government. They need to fuel their car. They need to service their car. They need to give their allowances. And the local government chairman will be hiding or will be putting his number busy because he has nothing to give. And these traditional rulers also in their various domain,
they don't get point. Yeah, we need to anchor at that point. We actually do hear you. Dr. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafa is the former chairman, Committee on Prosecution of Bandits-Related Offenses. Thank you very much indeed for your time. He joined us from our studios in Kano.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's take a look at some messages coming from you before we go. Festus talking about, he says, this tweet, there is no doubt that Nigerians are going through exceptionally tough time. While FG should obey court order and intervene to control and set the price of staple food to the lowest possible price, price controls will benefit rich people than poor people. Government should prioritize increasing salaries and offer generous financial support to the 88 million of our people that are living in poverty.
And we have this message here from Ifeanyi. He goes, the court order is mere talk. The federal government of Nigeria has never obeyed any court order, he says. The removal of fuel subsidy is a problem on its own. They should subsidize the price of petrol and diesel, and automatically things will begin to improve.
I see this one from Oshino or Kingsley. Says, our major problem is the imposed constitution, which is divisive, manipulative, favoristic, and set out to please a section of the country and the political elite. Let's go back to regional governance with full resource control if we must coexist. We are bleeding. That's from Oshino or Kingsley. And Samuel Omolagbon says, the cause of inflation is basically government policies. Since June 2023, the Naira had been devalued 5 times, coupled with the subsidy removal and increase in tariff on import duties. As government held up on these policies, prices will continue to soar.
Well, yes, indeed, guys. That is the show today. We do thank you all for your messages. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. What's up? Goodbye.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. I am Kayla Magwa. See you next time.
Thank you. I'm Mark Pelgun Yusuf.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if Mark is going to be here any second longer. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Never say never.
Okay, that would be good.
Thank you for staying tuned and welcome to News Track on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and these are the stories we're following for you this hour. Starting in the southwest, 6 persons have been reportedly killed as rival cult groups unleashed terror on each other in Ilesha and Osu towns in Osun State. Channels Television gathered that the killings took place at different locations in the 2 towns between last Tuesday and Wednesday evening. According to an anonymous source, residents in Ilesha who hinted on the incident, 3 people were killed on Tuesday evening in 3 different locations of the town by armed men suspected to be members of the Aye cult group. Subsequently, in retaliation, suspected members of the Aye confraternity reportedly mobilized and stormed a farm in Osu where 3 people were killed on a farm in the community. The public relations officer of Osun State Police Command, SP Emisi Okpalola, confirmed the cult-related killings. Okpalola, however, did not disclose the number of casualties recorded for security reasons and to avert crisis from escalating. She notes that armed police teams have been dispatched to the areas to restore peace and apprehend the culprits. And as part of efforts to cleanse the country of criminals, some notorious kidnappers and gun runners who have been terrorizing Abuja, Kaduna, Kogi, and Nasarawa states have been killed by police operatives at their hideout around Gitata along Kefi Gidanwaya Road in Nasarawa State. In a statement signed by the Force Public Relations Officer, Muiwa Adejobi, 4 AK-47 rifles, dangerous weapons and a bag of ammunition were recovered from the neutralized individuals who were also involved in supplying arms to bandits operating within the same axis. The Force Public Relations Officer adds that the successful operation conducted in the early hours of Thursday demonstrates the unwavering commitment of the Nigeria Police Force to ensuring the safety and security of all citizens and residents across the nation. And staying with security matters, the military is vowing to continue to fulfill its mission of hunting and destroying terrorists and their cohorts across the country in the most professional manner. According to the Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, the terrorists are left with only 2 choices, which is to either be killed or surrender. General Buba was providing an update on the activities of troops at the bi-weekly briefing in Abuja.
In the month of January, troops recorded the following. We neutralized 266 terrorists. We arrested 463 of them, and we rescued 116 kidnapped hostages. We also recovered 447 assorted weapons and over 6,690 assorted ammunition. We denied the oil theft of close to 3 billion naira just in the month of January. When we talk about counterinsurgency, one thing should come to mind. Like I said, though it might not seem as such, but a lot is ongoing and a lot is being done. One thing that should come to mind is the fact that counterinsurgency is not a sprint. It is a marathon.
In Zamfara State, Governor Dauda Lawal has reiterated his commitment to ending the spate of banditry and other criminal activity that have plagued the state. He stated this while inaugurating a 21-member board of trustees of the State Security Trust Fund. The Security Trust Fund was created to gather funds and aid the government's efforts in tackling the ongoing fight against terrorists and other crimes in the state.
Zamfara is one of the epicenters of insecurity in Nigeria's northwest region. as communities have been ransacked by bandits and kidnappers. The Zamfara state government, in its efforts to improve the situation, established a community protection guard outfit to complement the efforts of other security agencies.
Thank you very much.
The government has also inaugurated the Security Trust Fund to gather funds and aid the efforts to tackle the menace.
The government and people of Zamfara State have very high expectations on you and your performance. Drawing from your rich and diverse experiences, I have no doubt in my mind that you are all well suited for this crucial assignment. Your role is pivotal in addressing this avoidable menace in our communities and steering the state towards a trajectory of peace, progress, and sustainable development.
A former Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Abubakar, is the board chairman for the fund, and he wants the people to overcome the challenges together.
I'm particularly glad and happy that this case, by the grace of Allah, is on a new leaf. And inshallah, we shall collectively conquer these challenges of insecurity and underdevelopment under your administration. And going through all the rudiments of calculations, we realize it is not going to be an easy task. And we came in with the idea of the Security Trust Fund. At the Civic Center, in 1 day and 3 hours, we did the magic wonder that gave Lagos State Security Trust Fund